Hey everyone. So I made a poll not too long ago asking if you'd like me to do a Q&A video, and most of you said yes and left some questions in the comments. So here are my answers to those questions. And if you have any more questions, just leave them in the comments to this video, and if there's enough interest, then I'll do another one and we'll take it from there. All right, so let's get started. What's the writing process like when putting together a cover piece in the way that you do? That would really need a whole video just to explain that. But to give you a general idea, well, first of all, it depends on the song. Like on the easier songs, I basically just start playing and work my way through it and just keep kind of bashing at it until it works itself out. For the more challenging songs, which is probably what you're wondering, that takes a little more time. Usually I get the idea to do it and I go through the song a couple of times and I kind of start identifying parts where I know, okay, this part's gonna be really tricky. That part I have to figure out what to do, stuff like that. And then I focus on those parts. If they're too complicated, sometimes I write them out and practice them that way. And then beyond that, I mean, once I learn the notes, so to speak, then the challenge is to figure out the best way to play it. Sometimes the idea that I have doesn't quite work out the way I planned. I don't know, like maybe I get the idea to do something with some crazy percussion or something. And then when I try it out, it doesn't work, or it's way too hard, or I don't know. It's just kind of a lot of trial and error. That's why some songs take longer, you know. And when we're dealing with like 10-minute songs, it makes the process a lot longer. What draws you to Tool songs so often? They're amazing, but are you a fan? Is it the skill level of the songs? Maybe both, or something else? Well, I'm definitely a fan. Tool is one of my favorite, if not my favorite band, and that's mainly what draws me to them. They have most of the elements I naturally gravitate to myself in music. Heavy guitars, polyrhythms, I don't know. I just like their music a lot. And yeah, I mean, obviously the challenge is part of it, you know. It's not easy music. That's part of the reason I like it. And that's part of the reason it's fun to figure it out, and it really feels like an accomplishment when I get it to work. Every time I start a Tool song, I'm never sure if it's gonna work out. It always has up till now, but it's always an experiment, you know. It's always kind of, let's see if this works, let's see what happens. So that's part of the fun, I guess. How did you know you could do these epic fingerstyle guitar renditions of songs with tough harmonies, rhythms, poly melodies? And what motivated you to start? Well, as I said with the Tool stuff, I didn't really know. That was part of the reason I did it. It was kind of an experiment. When I started doing these, I was kind of going through this process of trying to find my own voice for my own music. So when I got the idea of doing a cover on acoustic guitar, I thought, okay, but let's do something that represents what I'd like my music to sound, you know. So my first thought was, well, I'd like to play something like what Tool does, but on the acoustic guitar. So the obvious choice was to try to play a Tool song. So it was like research almost. It was an experiment to see if what I wanted to do on the acoustic guitar would work, and if it would sound good, and if it was possible. So, and I guess it is. How do you like your string action, and do you have any recommendations for beginner guitarists? And which of your Tool covers do you think are easiest to play, which are harder? Well, I actually like my string action to be a little high compared to most guitarists. On the acoustic, it's partly because since I do a lot of really heavy strumming, if the string action is too low, I get a lot of rattling and stuff like that. I have to make this compromise between playability and sound. Beyond that, for some reason, I've always liked slightly higher action than normal. I don't know if it's, maybe I just got used to playing guitars with high action when I started out. I don't know, but it's kind of my preference. But for beginners, I recommend to start with the lowest action you can. Like, the easier you make it for yourself, the better. There's no reason to complicate things. As far as which Tool songs are easiest and hardest, I'd say Sober is probably the easiest, but I mean, they all have their challenges. Even that one, which is relatively easy to compare to the rest. The hardest, I mean, a lot of them are pretty hard, but I think Lateralis still wins as the hardest to play. I still have a hard time playing it if I don't practice it regularly. How did you end up arranging electric heavy songs in acoustic? Were you a fan of this music since the beginning, or did you discover later in your training? Well, that's kind of the same as the Tool stuff. Yeah, I mean, I've always been a metalhead. I've always been into heavy music. And again, that's kind of what I wanted to do. I wanted to do heavy music on the acoustic guitar. Well, not just heavy music, but that's one of the elements I wanted to capture on the acoustic guitar. My objective, or one of my objectives, was how can I make the acoustic guitar sound heavier? You know, how can I make it sound as heavy as possible? So that's always kind of been there, and I'm always trying to find ways to make it sound even heavier. So we'll see how that goes. How many years have you been a musician, and do you play any other instruments as well? Well, I've been a musician. I've been playing guitar for a little over 30 years now. Before that, I played a little piano, but I don't really count that. But yeah, I play some piano, I play some drums, I played bass like a guitarist, and that's about it. What kind of thumb picks do you use? The one you're using in Lateralis looks interesting. Well, I use a lot of different thumb picks. I'm always changing, I'm always trying. I still haven't found the perfect thumb pick. I've actually been thinking of doing a video about that. But the one I use on Lateralis, let me get it, is this one. Let's see. It's made by Chris Broderick. He was the guitarist for Megadeth for a while. Great guitarist. He made this, but it was really designed for playing on electric. The idea is that you can take any pick and put it in there. It feels like if you were holding the pick normally. And he used it mostly for like being able to switch to tapping and stuff like that without worrying about the pick falling. I used it for a while, but the problem is, and it's a problem I have with a lot of thumb picks, is when I get into like really aggressive strumming, the pick starts moving around, and that's not good. The other thing with this is that it's made of metal, and you see when the pick is in there, the metal part goes almost all the way up to the tip of the pick. And again, when I'm strumming, sometimes that metal part would scratch against the strings, and that didn't make a very pleasant sound. So didn't really work out. It's a great idea though, and it might work for some people, and for electric guitar playing, it's a cool idea. So yeah. Why did you choose to learn how to play guitar? Actually, I was thinking about this recently with all this promotion for the Metallica Black album. I remember the exact moment when I decided that I wanted to be a musician, that I wanted to play guitar for a living. And that was, I was in my room listening to Trapped Under Ice by Metallica. And it was that first guitar solo in the intro that Kirk does. That to me was like the coolest thing ever. And like when I heard that, I was like, that's what I want to do. So yeah. How does your musical knowledge and your education come in handy when it comes to covering complicated pieces like Pneuma? Do you think it would have been much more difficult or almost impossible if you didn't have this background? Well, it definitely helps. Definitely, especially for stuff like Pneuma, figuring out like the rhythms and the, you know, all the intricate parts. The main thing that helps me is being able to write stuff down, like the notation. That really helps me break stuff down into something that I can, you know, work on, and it doesn't become too overwhelming. The theory and all that also helps, but the main thing that has helped me is just, you know, the experience of learning lots of songs, playing a lot of music, learning a lot of different techniques. All that kind of becomes a tool set that you can always get stuff from. So that's really the main thing, but all the stuff I learned from studying music definitely makes it a lot easier. And the other thing that really helps is ear training, obviously. I mean, being able to pick stuff out by ear and different instruments, that's also a huge thing. What's the single most important piece of advice you would give to someone practicing guitar? 5 years here and still feeling a bit lost. Well, that's a hard question to answer. One piece of advice, it might sound a bit vague, but just enjoy the process. You know, this is a lifelong thing and you're always learning stuff. You know, I remember when I'd been playing for 5 years, it seemed like a long time. Now after 30 years, it seems like nothing, you know. Just focus on getting a little better each day. Just practice as much as you can. I don't know how old you are. When I started out, I was lucky enough that I could I could practice for hours every day. That's obviously easier to do when you're younger. Nowadays, I don't have that much time, but that helps a lot. But even if you practice, you know, like 15 minutes every day, that's something, you know. But the important thing is to keep the momentum going, just even if it's a little bit, but do it every day and always try to improve in some way. I mean, that's really applicable to any instrument, you know, but I think that's really the most important thing. Can you give us a detailed explanation of your formula for success? More specifically, what did you do personally to achieve such great prowess on the guitar? Number 2, do you play or will you ever play electric? Well, I'll answer the second part first. I do play electric, as well, you can see them back there. And I actually consider myself an electric guitarist more than an acoustic guitarist. But obviously, I got more attention with the acoustic stuff. But yeah, I do play electric, and I actually have some new music coming soon with some electric guitar. I also have a song I released last year called Placid, which you can check out. And as for my secret, I don't know, I just practice and play a lot. I've been playing for a long time, so but I'm still always trying to get better and always trying to achieve more. And the reason I do this partly is, you know, to improve myself. So I guess you could say to challenge yourself and try new stuff and always try to keep learning and improving. Do you get your income from your music or do you have an additional job? Do you have any plans on doing a tour or playing on festivals maybe? Well, I used to be a full-time musician. I didn't make money, or at least that much money from my own music. It was mostly playing gigs and teaching. But for the last couple of years, I've had a full-time job, which, I mean, I have a family now, 2 kids, and I really need that stability. Thankfully, these last few years, with this whole YouTube thing and my music and Spotify and all that, I've gotten to a point where my music has actually become a secondary income, a pretty decent secondary income. It's actually what kept my family afloat during the pandemic, and it's a really important part of our income right now. So no, I don't live from it, but you know, I do have my full-time job. We'll see how it goes. You know, the dream obviously is to be able to do it full-time, but for now, that's how it is. As for playing and touring, again, having a full-time job, that's kind of complicated, but it is something I'd like to do in the future. But we'll see. Right now I'm focusing on just building my audience, doing the live streams. And when it gets to a point where I have a big enough audience where I see that it's feasible, it's something I definitely want to do. What's your beer of choice? What kind of car do you drive? And what new music you've been listening to? My beer of choice, I don't really have a favorite beer nowadays. There's so much good stuff now. I'm always looking for new beers to try. But generally nowadays I tend to go for pale ales and wheat beers. I think that's because now that I'm back in Panama, it's really warm here. I tend to go for those you know, lighter colored beers. When I'm in colder climates, like when I was living in Germany, I like dark beers a lot. Also when I was in Boston. So I guess depends on the weather. Who are your biggest influences for your playing? Well, if you've watched my live streams, you've probably already heard it. I've mentioned him a lot of times, but Michael Hedges, as far as acoustic guitar playing, Michael Hedges all the way. He's basically the reason I started playing acoustic guitar, and a lot of the stuff I learned comes from him, comes from his playing. As far as electric guitar, John Petrucci from Dream Theater, big influence. I was really into Joe Satriani and Steve Vai. I don't really listen to their music that much anymore. Dream Theater also, I mean, I still check out their music, but they just, it informs my playing so much. Also, Adam Jones from Tool, obviously, he really kind of changed. Having come from that whole shred prog background, he sort of changed my whole mindset as far as electric guitar, like to pay more attention to like colors and effects and sounds, you know. He's a really, to me, his style of playing is very visual, and that kind of changed my whole approach to playing. There's others, but those are kind of the main guys that come to mind. For how long have you been listening to Tool? I started listening to Tool, well, I started when Sober came out. I remember when my friends told me, hey, I just checked out this video with the crazy puppets and stuff. But I didn't really get into them like for real until Anima came out. When I heard Stinkfist on MTV, and then I got that CD, that changed my life, like totally, like literally. What is your favorite tuning? Why do you like it? C minor, definitely. It just makes me play stuff that I like. Have you ever, are you in a band or group you play with often? Yeah, I'm in a band called Hacienda Libre. It's rock, it's like alternative prog-ish rock. We sing in Spanish, but if you'd like to check it out, I'll put a link in the description to our channel. If you like Tool, if you like 90s alternative or proggy stuff like Porcupine Tree, you'll probably like it. Maybe, I don't know. Favorite David Lynch film? I'm not actually much of a film buff. I don't think I've actually watched any David Lynch movies, but I do love Twin Peaks though, which funnily enough, I didn't watch it back when it came out. I watched it a couple of years ago, and it's just great. Do you have a girlfriend or wife? Yes, I'm married. We've been married for about almost 15 years now. And actually my wife, Carolina, sings on my song, Achieving the Godhead. And you can also check a video where we do it live. I'll put the link in the description. All right, so that's it for now. Like I said at the beginning, if you have any more questions, leave them in the comments in this video, and we'll see if we make more of these. Stay tuned for more music and more covers. And like, subscribe, join my Patreon, join the channel, all that cool stuff. Thanks everybody for your questions. See you next time. Bye.